And I had a pretty traumatic childhood. From childhood, I developed what's called complex PTSD. And then I went into the workforce and I accepted jobs that repeated the dynamic that I experienced in childhood. The abuse sometimes is not what people are trying to do, but their trauma does come up in these relationships at work that they experienced in their childhoods, and we're caught up in those dynamics.
Welcome to In Her Words. This podcast is for women navigating through change, career, identity, motherhood, and just figuring out what's next. I'm Roberta Dombrowski, host of In Her Words and founder of Learn Mindfully. Each episode, I sit down with women who are asking big questions, navigating transitions, and trying to make sense of life as it shifts. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just need space to be real. Let's get into it. With me today, I have Alla Weinberg. Alla is the CEO of Spoken Wheel, a people development company that focuses on healing relational trauma and building cultures of safety in families and workplaces. She is a trauma coach and author who has incorporated her design background with the principles of neuroscience, positive psychology, and relationship research to help people break cycles of trauma. In her book, A Culture of Safety Building an Environment for People to Think, Collaborate, and Innovate, Alla delves into the tools, practices, and rituals that help people create a physical, emotional, and psychological safety. Welcome, Alla.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you today. You're a cool, good friend, and I'm excited to have
Yes.
you featured. First, I'd like to just start broad. Tell us a little bit about your background. How did you end up focused on this work?
I mean, my background has been in the design industry for the last 20 years. And I started out in the, I guess at that point it was information architecture, which turned into UX, which turned into product design, which turned for me into service design. So I kind of grew up with the field, but also I was one of the few women in tech at the time. And, for a lot of the growth of the design industry. And why I ended up where I did was just not feeling physically, emotionally, and psychologically safe in a lot of the tech environments that I was in. And, kind of healing my own struggle and pain around that. I wrote the book to try to help to, hopefully change some of these cultures, some of these environments so other folks wouldn't have to feel the pain that I went through. I don't know if you had a similar experience working in tech.
Oh, yeah. I have.
Let's be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think most people do, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I myself have experienced it at multiple job companies, locations, etc. And it wasn't until I consciously decided to step away and look at everything, you really see how much trauma
Exactly.
and everything is there.
Same for me. Like I didn't really see it until honestly I gave birth to my son and I went off on maternity leave and I had some distance from it and I was just like, what is this? And I know people like to use the term toxic when they're referring to their workplaces, but I really, especially just even recently, want to be more accurate and say that it's abusive because that's what it is. I feel toxic is a euphemism.
It's a catch-all, yeah, in a lot
Yeah,
of places.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And I also want to say like that it's not the workplaces that are abusive, it's people are abusing other people in the workplaces. And systemically, the way that people work together and the way things are structured, the abusers get protected, not the victims. So it's just become increasingly important for me to point out that there are people that are perpetrating the abuse. It's not a nameless, faceless entity that's perpetuating abuse. It's your boss, it's your executives, it's your colleagues. Sometimes it's your reports. We've had it at all levels. It's other people being abusive to each other and harming and hurting each other.
Yes, I love that distinction, and some things too, it can be more than one person inside of an
Yes,
environment. That's what
right.
starts to make it be systemic inside of an organization. I'm curious as we talk about abuse rather than using the word toxic as like a catch-all, are there certain signals that our listeners should be looking out for when it comes to these workplaces or environments?
I think the majority of abuse is emotional in the workplace. And so I would point people to look at how they're feeling. Because when I was feeling abused at work, I would wake up and I would cry because I didn't want to go to work.
Yeah.
And face it again, or I had crazy anxiety. I had to get on medication as a result of being scared about what's going to happen today with that individual that I'm having issues with. If you have the Sunday scaries, I think that's a pretty good sign there. Constantly feeling like you may be let go at any point, and I know a lot of folks are feeling that way now, where mass layoffs sort of have become commonplace at this point. And I know that sometimes, and again, even like like even in really personal, romantic, abusive relationships, you don't feel like you can leave. Like I have to pay rent, I have to support my life, and it doesn't feel good. The feeling, this is the red flag, right? Like the feeling is like I'm almost held hostage
Yes.
by it, and I can't leave.
Yeah.
If you're having these thoughts, I mean, those are really red flags. And or if you're feeling really numb, actually, sometimes we, as a protection mechanism, we don't feel anxious. We're not crying. We just feel numb and disconnected.
Mhm.
And several people have said to me, like, soul sucked. My soul got sucked out, right? If this is what you're feeling inside, those are the flags that something is
Yeah.
going on.
It's teetering between, like, hyperarousal, so, like, the fighting and all of that,
Yeah.
and then the hypo, which is the numbing out, for me, it's sitting on the couch and watching, like, Law& and Order SVU marathons and stuff like that. Like,
I
that's
also
my
watch the
go-to.
detective shows, exactly.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
And the reason we have these responses, right, is because, well, first of all, we spend so much of our life at work, and it's a long term, often many years. And then we're feeling this abuse repeatedly, daily, maybe weekly, maybe monthly, for a long period of time. And so our body starts to protect us. That's what it does. That's its job.
Yeah. I'm having such a full circle moment right now during this interview as we're talking about
Right.
this. For the listeners, I actually read Alla's book, I wanna say 2 to 3 years ago when dealing with in a similar environment that we're describing, and it was so eye-opening because she actually lists out each different component of safety. What does safety look like in the workplace and red flags and all the things that we're talking about? And so I kind of, yeah, I just have to note that it feels really, really wonderful to be in this full circle moment with
Yeah.
you.
Oh, thank you. What were you feeling emotionally at that time? What were some of the
Oh,
flags for
yeah,
you?
yeah. For me, I was starting to shut down. I was not feeling confident. I was questioning myself. I
Yes.
was terrified. It's funny, I felt like I was getting in trouble with a boss. Like
Yes.
it felt very it took me back to childhood where I
Yes.
was like, "Oh, I used to get in trouble with my mom." Like that's the way I was being spoken down to, and it was reminiscent of that. And then what I found was based on that, there was physical manifestations as well. There was for me, it's arm scratching. Like, when I get stressed, I start scratching my arms, and I'm like, "Where did this come Why is my arm red?
I
Why am I
start
getting,
biting
like,
my
hives?"
nails.
Yeah, yeah. Digestive issues, I can't sleep at night, and then it compounds sometimes, and usually the big wake-up call is the panic attacks, like, at night. And it ends up yeah, it compounds over time and flags until it makes itself known because usually the physical will manifest first before we process and we recognize it. And it takes talking to people to realize sometimes for me at least, when we had the conversation, I was listing all these things and you held space for me. And I was like, we use toxic. I was like, is this a toxic or abusive? And you were like, yeah, like what you're describing.
Yeah.
But it can be people who are going through these environments, there can be a lot of shame.
There is, and I think there's a lot of normalization that, like, this is normal. This is how we interact with each other at work. This is fine. This is how all the other companies do it. And if you go to multiple companies, you have similar experiences. You're like, I guess this is normal. I'm the problem. And oftentimes, like a manager or a supervisor, even a skip level, tried to talk to skip level managers before too, will say, well, oh, it sounds like you need help. You, the individual who's taking the abuse, are the one that needs to go, use our EAP plan or talk to a therapist or get help rather than, well, actually, the way that I'm being treated is abusive.
Yeah. I'm curious your perspective because you have worked on HR teams before.
Yes.
How has that been? Because usually HR is kind of the function that's supposed to support the people, and is that the case that you have seen in these types of environments? Yeah.
I'm laughing right now because it was actually like HR was worse than the design
Mm.
department that I worked in. They care about protecting the company and they don't care about the employees. And they like to make colorful statements about this is a safe environment, but making statements is not what makes an environment safe. And there also often isn't like HR for HR. And so within the department itself, I found it to be surprisingly even more dysfunctional than some of the design departments that I've been a part of. And what's interesting is I found there are a lot of women that work in HR, and I had female, boss, and then my skip level was female, and I've been a female CHRO, like females all the way. And it felt even more abusive to me than, like, being in a design department where I was reporting to mostly men
Yeah.
in that. And I find that interesting that women have internalized this abuse in a way that this is the way I have to behave and treat people in order to get ahead within modern organizations or corporations.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unfortunate. One thing you said is that you talked a little bit about not feeling safe inside of these environments, and then the abuse coming up. So we talked a little bit about kind of abuse and the signals. What does a truly psychologically safe or truly safe workplace actually look like? Are they possible?
I think they are possible. I don't feel I've worked in any yet. And that is because the way that current environments are structured with, again, with hierarchies, doesn't really allow for that. When somebody has power over someone, there isn't a way to create safety, truly. And safety, what does safety feel like? Safety is a very much a relationship. And I think that people miss that. They again, there's like this abstraction around it. Like somehow I feel relaxed all the time. I don't think you will always feel relaxed. That's not a thing. Or I'll feel calm or I'll feel regulated. Again, not a thing for human beings. That's not how we operate. I think a safe environment is where you have strong connections with the people that you work with. You
Mm.
have healthy, honest relationships with each other, and you know how to repair when things go wrong and to talk about things. And you're not frightened to have these conversations because that person might fire you for
Mhm.
having the conversation,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it's really, I think a safe environment is really an environment that has high quality, healthy relationships, where people have high quality, healthy relationships with each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
And I don't believe you can have that with a hierarchy. I really don't.
So you believe workplaces should be flat across
I
and
think
there's
they
no
should be
high.
circular.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think completely different, not even flat. I think circular, where leadership is shared. It's a completely different model, right? So not so masculine, I would say, like not
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a little bit more communal,
Yep.
where we are a community together. I don't believe in family. There's a lot of,
I was about to say
oh
that's
my
very
goodness, no.
abusive.
super abusive.
Yeah.
And a lot of us have families that are very harmful and abusive to us. So I don't
Yeah.
want to perpetuate that myth. I
Yeah.
think a community, because we're coming together for a purpose, to accomplish
Mhm.
something, to do something, but we're all going to take care of each other. That's
Yeah.
what we're going to do. And we're going to support each other and we're going to help each other. And I may need to step up at a certain point because I have the skills that are needed at that
Yeah.
moment for
Yeah.
us. And then I might need to step back.
Yep.
And then somebody else might need to step forward. And then that way we're sharing leadership, but there's no way we could do that if there's a structure of power over anyone.
Yeah, yeah, you're taking me back to one of my favorite leadership books is Coactive Leadership, and it talks about the different ways to lead and leading from the front or behind and all and side and all of that. And it is more fluid, more
It's more
circular, like you're
fluid.
saying. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did take the coactive leadership program. So
Oh,
I
you did?
it does
Okay.
come from that. I'm not gonna be like it's from me. So-
I've always wanted to take it, so it's a good reminder. But one thing you mentioned is that safety, even abuse, it's all relational. And we even mentioned like a common phrase is like, oh, we're like family inside of workplaces. And I actually believe that a lot of the abuse that we see in workplaces actually come from our family of origin. They're just kind of unhealed ways of being that we bring into these relationships.
I 100% agree with that. And I had a pretty traumatic childhood. And from childhood, I developed what's called complex PTSD. And then I went into the workforce and I accepted jobs that repeated the dynamic that I experienced in childhood, which was, for me, it was a lot of neglect, not feeling seen, and certainly my feelings not being acknowledged or heard, not being helped when I was struggling as a
Mhm.
child.
Mhm.
And I then went and decided to work at companies that had a very similar dynamic. And I was like, oh, this feels normal to me. This is what I grew up in. And again, also like the abuse sometimes, I mean, I think even often is not what people are trying to do, but they are working but their trauma does come up in these relationships at work that they experienced in their childhoods, and
Mhm.
we're caught up in those dynamics, and then we're causing harm to each other because we're coming from a really like a hurt, traumatized place, and because we
Yeah.
truly don't know a different way and we haven't healed that part of us
Mhm.
that got hurt, and we just don't know a different way to relate to each other and to interact with each other and to be with each other. And so if I had a very dominant parent that dominated me, punished me, controlled me, when I'm the manager, that's what I'm going to do. That's all I know of how to relate to people. So that's what I'm going to
Yeah.
do.
How can leaders come out of that if that's kind of their learned behaviors or ways of being?
I think leaders, the first step is recognizing that I really truly believe no one has left childhood unscathed or untouched by trauma. Like,
Yes.
I
Yes.
received a comment recently on the LinkedIn post I made that like, oh, we should be cautious about using the word trauma. And I actually feel the opposite. I feel like we need to be a little bit more open
Now I'm like,
with
"Ooh, I
that.
wanna find that."
I was like, no, let's
I
actually be a
agree.
little bit more open with using it
Yes.
because I truly believe, again, the extent of the trauma will be different for every human being,
Mhm.
but I do feel we have all experienced it. For folks that are listening, trauma is an overloading of our stress response in our bodies. So all of us have all of us handle stress. That's our body's
Mhm.
designed to handle stress, and when we've experienced trauma, it's so overwhelming for our stress response system that it cannot handle that. And so we create coping mechanisms, we create defenses, we create protections, armor, and we create patterns of how we relate to each other, how we have relationships with human beings. And one of those patterns very common in the workplace is I'm going to avoid all conflict. This is why people hate feedback and they pay thousands of dollars for people to teach them how to give and receive feedback to each other. That's not the issue. It's truly not. I've developed a technique where I avoid having conflict with people. I avoid bad conversations because they're scary. And when I have them again, it reminds my body that I'm in danger, and my stress response system overreacts
Yep.
to
Yeah.
those things. And this is happening all the time, every single day
Yeah.
in our workplaces.
Yeah. One of my favorite assessments to use with coaching clients is the positive intelligence assessment. It talks about saboteurs. And that's definitely like one of them is you could be a people pleaser. You want to avoid it. Like you avoid it by saying yes to everything all the time. When you really start to break down the habits and I would say like slowing down, you actually get to observe, witness what's going on, not only within yourself, but other people around you. You realize you can see what's happening in the type of styles that people have in high stress environments.
And I think one of the things that leaders can do is the first step truly is that self-observation.
Yeah.
Like, look at your relationships. It doesn't even have to be specifically at work, but it can be at work, it can be at home. Because how you do one relationship is how you do many
Yeah.
relationships, right?
Yes.
And so, like,
Yes.
what are the patterns that I'm seeing? Where am I avoiding? Where am I fighting with folks? Where am I completely just numbing out, shutting down, or
Mhm.
distracting myself? Where do I get defensive around people? What are my blockers to connection in my relationships? Because that is going to point you to where your trauma is.
Yes, yes, absolutely. I always say the things that frustrate me about somebody else are probably things that are within myself in some way as well. We're all mirrors to each other, really.
Yeah. And the other thing I find really harmful in the current way that we work together is that this false urgency, this high speed way of being more, of always being more productive, faster, do more, accomplish more, doesn't work for, again, our systems to connect to each other as human beings. And because human beings actually connect when we're slowed down a
Mhm.
little bit,
Mhm.
and we can start to really see each other as humans. And like, you have struggles and I have struggles and challenges, and you have trauma and I have trauma, and it truly takes a slowing down. But a lot of our current ways that we work doesn't even allow for that. And then we're wondering, well, why are these people so difficult? Or, why can't I get along with my manager? Or, why am I really struggling here? A lot of it is because we just haven't slowed down enough to form meaningful connections and relationships with each other, and see each other as roles, which is very dehumanizing.
Yeah, I feel like the workplaces that we're in thrive off of dysregulation of our nervous systems and our coping mechanisms that we pick up. Because you may be throwing yourself into work to overperform, to avoid sitting with the uncomfortable, and that ends up causing profit for the company, etc. And it ends up exacerbating the problem and creating distance between us.
I agree. But it's so harmful to us.
It is. People also don't know that another way is possible if these are the systems that we've been in our entire lives.
Amen. Yeah. I know. This is also why I wrote the book, because I want to encourage imagination of
Mm.
other ways to work together, other structures, other possibilities of how to get things done where we can feel like we have healthy, honest relationships
Yeah. I
with
was
each other.
speaking to someone earlier today actually about this exactly about the dreaming because I talk a lot about like surviving versus thriving. And when we talk about abuse and stuff, we become so dysregulated. We are just surviving. And when you're in survival mode, you can forget to dream. You can forget about what's possible. And that's why it's so important.
I don't think it's even forgetting it. I think when you're in survival mode, you have this tunnel
Narrow.
vision, very
Yeah.
narrow vision. You actually can't access those parts of the
Mhm.
brain, because what is our body designed for? Every system in our body is designed to keep us alive for our
Mhm.
survival, right? It's beautiful. It works really well. And all those coping mechanisms that we talked about, they may hinder our life, kind of how we feel in our life, but they're keeping us alive. Like, they're actually doing their job. They're really beautiful. And exactly what you're saying is, when we move from surviving to thriving, can we then actually start to imagine different futures. And I really want, like, I guess this is my biggest desire. Like, I really want us to, in a very liberatory way, imagine how we could work together that benefits the well-being of everyone, and the way that human beings have well-being. And there's been studies after studies of like, what does happiness mean for people? And it's actually good, really, really good relationships. That's what it
Yeah.
means. It's like really,
Yeah.
like really great, like loving relationships,
Yeah.
right? That's what I wanna at work, 'cause we spend like the more time at the people we work with than we do any other people
We
in our
do, we
lives.
do. I always say that we heal in community with others, and it's so true. One last question about work before we kind of transition topics. We're living in trauma. Like, we're living in just multiple traumas happening every day, all day on the news. For people at work, there's layoffs that are kind of just consistently running for years. For people who are leading teams or collaborating with others, what are steps that you can take to kind of acknowledge what's going on in the current moment and even kind of rebuild or look ahead to the future?
I do believe that we are collectively experiencing work trauma, like as a collective right
Yeah.
now, and that it's gotten to a level of greed and extraction that is obvious at this point
Mhm.
and untenable for human beings. And I think the best thing to do as a leader is to create space to slow down with each other, to acknowledge like whatever's happening in this moment, that yes, this is happening and it's affecting people, again, to varying degrees, but we're all affected by it. I know this sounds simple, but I put it in my book. It's like to spend a few minutes just breathing together, and having some attunement practices where we really like kind of hone in on for each other and how we're feeling, and start to connect around that. A leader could also ask like, are there any feelings, or does anybody need to say anything about what's currently going on? And to also normalize, like, it's okay if you're feeling anxious. It makes sense. Many of us are probably feeling disoriented and kind of discombobulated and uncertain and scared
Yeah.
right
Yeah.
now, right?
Yeah.
And let's be there for each other.
Yeah, a slowing down and witnessing and holding space because 'cause
Yeah,
we're not robots.
we're not robots.
No.
I mean, even if leaders could just slow things down at the beginning of a meeting, just slow it
Yeah.
down. That in itself would go a long way. Just give people a little breathing room. Literally, like just give people a chance to breathe a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite practices is, like, call it, like, a mindful minute at the beginning of each like, a
Mm.
meeting is, like, literally sit in silence, turn off Slack, just be in the room with the other person, or even just a short, like, guided meditation at the beginning of a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like a body-based practice. That's also a really good thing to start to bring into work. I think we idealize the head too much and do
Mhm.
too much in the head. So we still have a body, and we do have body wisdom. And that's where our nervous system lives for the most part, is in the body as well. And so I like to start off meetings with like the three S's: stretch your body, shake your body, and sit in silence
Mm,
for a minute.
I love
And
that.
that's just that helps us regulate together. Like, you're a safe person for me, and our relationship is okay. And my
Yeah.
body is safe with you in this meeting.
Yeah.
Just again, and this is what I wrote about a lot about in my books, is changing how we meet together,
Mhm.
because that's where relationships happen,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Changing how we meet together, having that moment of silence with no distractions, doing some stretching together, doing some movement, breathing together. What are all those pointing to? You know, slow it down, really see each other, check in, what's going on before diving head into careening
Yeah.
into more work.
Yeah, yeah. What you're talking about too is, like, I feel like what we cover going through coaching certification and coaching school, and I always say, like, if everyone in the world went through that Oh my gosh, the world would be a different place because it's just how you hold space and interact with people is just
Mhm.
completely different.
And I truly feel like those are the leadership skills.
Yeah. Transitioning a little bit, you are a mom.
I am.
I'm curious, how has that experience changed how you show up at work, what you focus on at work, who you are as a human being?
For me, it's changed everything because when I gave birth to my son, I had really bad postpartum anxiety. And I didn't realize that I had complex trauma until I had like literally after, postpartum, just immediately after giving birth to my son. And as he's grown, he's just been my greatest healer because I've come into situations with him where I'm triggered and I'm like, "But what is going on with me here?" And now, well, like the way that it relates to work is first I'm able to identify when I'm triggered. I didn't even know before. I was just like, well, I don't feel good, but I didn't realize I was very, very dysregulated. And now I know because I've been triggered enough by my child that like I can tell. But also, because I know that and I will truly believe no one has left childhood without experiencing some trauma. When I'm really having trouble with a relationship at work, I can I can sort of see the child in that person, like the inner child that is really struggling right now. And when I approach that adult, kind of in the same way that I would my child, which is like holding space, being compassionate, being understanding, not punishing them for their feelings, right? Like you're gonna have your feelings,
Yep.
and also taking care of myself, like knowing like there's something going on for me and it's not that they have to change, it's me. Like I need to do something here. I feel softer around people and that and like so the quality of the relationship
Yeah.
really changes.
That's so beautifully said. I'm still going through the transition. Obviously, my son is
Yeah.
four months now, but I feel like it's just rocked my entire world of like, who am I? What was I doing? Like, even before, like, the way that I dealt with trauma was control. If I can have my plan, like, me and my husband would even say, like, going to the grocery store, like, I got my list every time, like, nothing's gonna take me
Right.
off track. And with kids, there's n
Good luck.
nothing goes according to plan. Nothing goes according to plan. And so I feel like you said, your son is your biggest healer. I feel like this is a journey that's just gonna keep unfolding and unfolding
Yeah.
and unfolding. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's many points where as a child he's just so out there, right? Expressive. Like I didn't get what I wanted and I'm gonna like meltdown right now. And I really didn't feel like I had that permission for me as a child when I was a child.
Yeah.
And so
Same.
it's been difficult to, and I really wanted to parent. And I'm very conscious, like I want to do my best to parent differently. And so I wanted to give him that permission and had to work through the sadness and the grief that I feel that been holding inside of myself for not having that space. But we think that we're so logical at work and none of that's true at all. And when a coworker is having some emotion or something's happening for them, again I just allow for that. And as you're talking, what I'm thinking about is again like how so many of our workplaces are built on control, right? And I even wonder if that's like a very like the way that we structured work is also very much a traumatic response to
Yeah, like, was the birthplace of our work vocational systems built out of trauma? Likely.
well, I believe that the birthplace of our current modern workplaces was slavery, which is built
Trauma.
on a collective trauma of
Yeah.
workers,
Yep.
laborers.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And that's why like I mean that fundamentally to for me needs to change if we genuinely want people to feel safe at work, if we genuinely want people to thrive and innovate. Again, because we can't innovate when we're very, very stressed out and traumatized from the relationships that we're having with people.
Yeah, I agree. Transitioning a little bit, what are you working on now? We know you did the book.
Yes.
We're talking about relational, we're talking about workplace. Yeah, what are you working on?
Kind of, I think moving along those same lines, I think
Yeah.
it's my own trauma healing that I've gone through in the last, I would say, 5 years, really working deeply with a therapist, that I'm moving into helping people specifically heal work trauma. That's what I feel like is needed right now. And I want to liberate people in that way so that they can imagine different ways to work together so that they can heal. Some of it is from childhood, so heal some of the childhood stuff, but also heal some of the really traumatic relationships that we've had with people we've worked with. And I feel like I want to turn my pain and my journey through it to like still heal others and to help others out from there.
Yeah. I think, well, one, you've helped me on my own journey in this space, so I'm very excited to see your focus. I think it's much needed, and I know that our listeners will definitely be interested in this space as well.
And I think it's just a natural progression, like first for even for me in my own understanding and my own healing of like, oh, what I deeply want is safety. How do I get it? A lot of it is I have to do some like some of the healing of where I've experienced trauma, and so that's first stepping stone was my book, which is like safety, but now to get outer safety, but also to get inner safety, which I haven't experienced much in my life, so I didn't even know what it felt like
Yeah.
inside of me.
You have to get to the muck. I always say it's onions and you peel back the
Yeah,
layers of the onions to get to it, and then on the other side is the growth, the post-traumatic growth,
exactly.
and the feeling of safety and being able to be in those spaces with others.
And that's why now, like, I can't imagine a circular way to work, right? Like a really different structure. I can imagine a more liberatory way
Yep.
to work with each
Yeah.
other that's not rooted in slavery, that I can
Yes.
imagine as having really healthy and honest relationships with each other and not ones made of fear and control and
Yep.
punishment. There's no way I could even imagine that possibility until I worked through some of my stuff.
Where can people find you if they wanna connect with you or learn more?
They can find me on my website. It's spokeandwheel.co.co. There's no M at the end of that. And I'm currently taking on one-on-one clients who are wanting to heal work trauma, have been through it and are ready to do that. And I'm also piloting a group program as well of folks that want to work with other individuals to heal work trauma because I truly believe that we got the trauma through a relationship and we heal it through a relationship, either in a group setting or with me as a guide. And I offer this not as a therapist but as somebody who has walked and is continuing to walk the journey herself as well.
Well, I feel so lucky to be walking the journey with you
Yeah,
myself,
me
so
too.
thank you so much for joining.
My
So, so
pleasure.
grateful for having you today.
Thank you for the invitation and the wonderful conversation.
Thanks for being here. If something in this episode landed with you, feel free to pass it along to someone who might need it too. You can leave a review, subscribe, or just keep tuning in. We're figuring it out together. And remember, your story, your voice, your becoming, it all matters.